Hi folks, welcome back to another episode of RunYogi Diaries. This is your host, Santosh Shiva. Every week, I bring you conversations with people who are on a journey of well-being and fitness through endurance sports. I hope they spark some possibility in you, leave you with some tips, and perhaps inspire you to perspire. This episode is also available on leading podcast platforms if audio is your thing. Also, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing to it. Hit like if you like this video, and remember to leave your comments. Let us know if you took something away. In the house today is someone who belongs to an elite list of athletes who have done 100 plus of the 100-mile ultra running races. Just when you think you've learned the limits of human endurance, comes another of such accomplishments that just baffle one's mind. Also, to her credit, are over 300 ultra running finishes in a span of 20 years. That's an average of 15 ultras per year. If that's not superhuman endurance, what is? We get the opportunity to understand the person behind the incredible achievement. What got her started? What kept her going and sustained? How did she find purpose? Her foray into life coaching, and finally, what's next in her journey? Let's welcome Susan Donnelly. Hey Susan, welcome to RunYogi Diaries.
Hi, glad to be here.
So I'm so stoked and so honored to have you in the show and spend some time around your journey and learn a few things for me and my viewers. So before that, let me maybe hand it back to you and have you do a quick, brief personal introduction before we jump into the main story.
Yeah, I'm Susan Donnelly. I've run, I think, everybody asks this, I think I've run, and I need to recount, I think I've done 126 100-milers now, as of Mohican just a couple weekends ago. I live in East Tennessee. Fortunately, I live in between two mountain ranges, the Smoky Mountains and the Cumberlands, which everybody knows from the Barkley marathons. But I get to go train in the Smokies a lot, which I love. Let's see, I am by degree and education and day job, I am a mechanical engineer who really doesn't use my mechanical engineering that much, but I do something a lot more fun, which is very much like coaching in that I help the site that I work at when they have something going wrong. I help them figure out what happened and how to prevent it from happening again. So that fits very well with the coaching I do, which is what I am segueing into. And that is I help ultra runners. I'm a life coach. I learned life coaching back in the day when nobody knew what a life coach was. And I was really searching for a way to run better. And I kind of fell into it and have loved it. And it's worked well for me. And we can talk about that later. But I'm a life coach who helps ultra runners build the skills that they need to take on bigger challenges. And that's mostly mental skills, but that's also some race skills too, because I've done so many races. I need to count this also. I haven't counted it in a long time. I've probably done 300 ultras-ish total, all distances totaled up.
Wow.
So,
and this is over how many years? 300 ultras?
I started in 96 or 97, so that's a couple decades. So yeah, it's not, there are people out there, and I know them, and I've got friends that do this, that do like a stunt, like I'm going to do X number of hundreds in a year. And I've just done it continually. Once I found 100-milers and fell in love with them, I decided that's what I wanted to really focus on. And so I've done lots and lots for many, many, many years.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, 300 is a huge number. Well, let's get into it. I think we have a lot to learn about from your journey, but maybe we should do a bit of a flashback here, right? And in terms of where it started, how did running get into your life? How did that show up? And then, of course, ultras and marathons and all that stuff. So Let's hear that from you.
Running, so people ask this a lot. I started running in high school and on the track and cross country teams. I really loved it, and because I love to run. And when I saw that there was a team, I thought that's what I have to do. That's what I have to join. So I joined, and I was not fast. I was mid-pack at best, but I loved being on the team, and I loved running, and that was it was never a question for me. And that was, I remember Nike waffle trainers coming out, and for the female runners, sports bras coming out. I mean, it was the time to be running as a female runner. And this is back in the 70s, late 70s. So I was on the team, and one day my coach, in my senior year, my coach told me not to bother trying out for the college team. And I hadn't even discussed it with him. He pulled me aside in the gym hallway and just told me that. And I thought he was going to pull me aside to tell me something good. It was not to bother trying out for the college team, and I was crushed. I mean, I knew I wasn't fast. I'd never been on a relay team. I wasn't on the championship teams for the state meets or anything like that, but I really felt like I contributed and belonged, and I just loved running, and I didn't know it was really crushing. And so I quit running. I went to college and quit running. This was again back in the early 80s, and there wasn't a whole lot of people out running back then, especially women on their own. Mm-hmm. And so there wasn't a whole lot of role models, and there weren't a lot of examples. And when I did finally pick it up, it's just a way to deal with stress, and the stress of graduating, finding a job. And I thought to myself, what was life like the last time I was happy? Because I'm really unhappy right now. What was life like? What was I doing that's different than I'm doing now? And running was the one thing that came to mind. I thought, I'm going to go run. So I ran a mile, and I progressed up to 9 miles. But again, I was the only woman running, pretty much. And so I started doing some 5Ks, 10Ks, and I read about that time. I happened on an article, and I swear it was like a homemade magazine. It was black and white. It was called Wild Trails. And this was back in the early mid-80s probably. And it had articles about trail running, which viewers right now won't appreciate this, I don't think. But back then, people hiked on trails. There was no such thing. There was hardly a thing of women running on their own just for fitness, much less people running on trails, much less women running on trails. The combination was just mind-blowing to me. And I'd loved as a kid running around in the woods, and I thought that's it. That's what I want to do. Why did I not know this was a thing? And I remember flipping the pages and then seeing a photo of Ann Trayson at Western States, this race called Western States, which was a 100-miler. Again, mind blown again, with the same magazine. And a woman running, and she had a rock right. I remember the photo distinctly. She had a rock right here, and she's climbing up this climb, and I thought, I had this knowing that it's very hard to put into words that I am meant to do that. It's not like I want to do that. It's just that's what I am meant to do. And and so I started training. I found a 50-mile race in the very, very back corner tile of local Southeastern Running magazine. And I thought, 50-mile race, okay, that's how I start on this. And again, I'd never even run a trail, but I'm going to do this 50-mile race. I have no idea how to train about it. There's no books. There's nobody doing this that I know of. There's no internet. There's no Google. There's no nothing. So I had trained for and run the Atlanta Marathon, my first marathon, and I thought, well, I'll just take that and guess from there. And I just kind of guessed, and I thought, well, I can't do 40-mile training runs. That seems extreme. So maybe I just kind of taper it off at a marathon. So I was training up the best I could guess at. Yeah. That was realistic. Again, having talked to no one. No one. And I entered the race, this 50-mile race, and it was coming up. It was like the following month, and I'd been training on my own, had a job, been training on my own, and I had my appendix burst, and I didn't realize it. So I ran and walked around with it and a fever for like a week. My body apparently walled it off, and
with a broken appendix.
Yeah.
Ooh, I've had broken appendix, and it's painful.
It's painful. Yeah, this was like, I don't know, it was, my body apparently walled it off. And I didn't feel good. I had a temperature. And I kept going to doctors and trying to figure out what was wrong. And they misdiagnosed me as a female. They kept telling me I was pregnant. I said, no, I'm not pregnant. It's got to be something more. I kept getting told I was pregnant. I said, no, for the umpteenth time, I'm not. Anyway, appendix surgery pretty much ruled the race the following month out. And I thought, well, I got really cut open for that and cleaned out. It was not a small scar, which meant I had to kind of learn to start walking again. And I thought, well, I still have some leftover fitness from training up for this 50. Maybe I can find another one in this was the fall. Maybe I can find another one in the spring, and I can just like recover from this appendix surgery quickly and get one in the spring. And then some adhesions from that surgery broke open at Christmas time. I spent that Christmas in the hospital with internal bleeding. So that pretty much, my first ultra was pretty much, I thought, I just cannot. I need to like regroup, heal up from both of these surgeries, and then I'll reconsider it. And so I tabled it for like 10 years.
Wow.
I just kept on with life and how I thought life was supposed to be, getting a job, moving, getting a better job, how am I going to live life? All of that distracted me, and the ultras were pretty much on the table. So I didn't start back. I happened to move back to Tennessee and run into somebody who mentioned ultras, and I said, I was used to be training for one.
Before you jump into the chapter, I think one is it's amazing that you kind of you are known to take the road less traveled, right? And I was reading about your background, and you're a mechanical engineer. Not many mechanical engineers.
No.
Not many women.
Not many female mechanical engineers.
Right. And I'm a mechanical engineer. And I know because I never saw many women choosing that. Prefer computer science and electronics all the time. So that's one thing. And then you choose to go do an ultra, even after not really being accepted in the running, quote unquote, running circles when you were growing up. You chose to go do ultras when it was not something that's not even it wasn't a popular sport among men. Forget about women. So it was like it was just not a sport at all.
It was not a sport.
So is that something? Where did you get that streak from? Like, how did you end up being someone who wants to do things outside the box?
That's an interesting question. I don't know that I've ever been asked that. I think it came from not feeling, and probably a lot of people can identify this, but not feeling like I fit in with any group in school. Not feeling like I really fit in. I wasn't a part of this group. I wasn't a part of this group. And my class was very kind of, my class was fairly cliquish. The class behind me was not. So there was a little bit of a mix, and I just never really fit into any group except for the running group. And then I was told I wasn't even good at that. So it was like I have to find my path. And I do remember that as I went out and I tried 5Ks and 10Ks and finally a marathon on my own, I realized that the longer the distance, and we weren't, by the way, in high school, the girls weren't allowed to run as far as the boys in practice or in meets, in cross country or in track. The guys had a 2-mile, and I remember looking at the guys running the 2-mile thinking, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. And we only had a mile, which, I definitely was not a sprinter, but a mile, I was definitely not a star miler. And I thought, for some reason, I just kind of knew that the longer to the distance, the better I was. And when I finally got to the marathon distance, I thought, okay, the longer the race, the better. And so I think that helped me think about ultras as a possibility, or maybe this is a place, maybe this is where I shine. Maybe this is where I belong. Yeah. But I think also the not fitting in and trying to find my place, continually trying to find my place. That's the best answer I can come up with for that.
Sense. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. There's a lot of gold in there, and I think that's a journey everyone is in. Some are lucky to land on it earlier than later. So let's maybe get back into where you were just pivoting in. Before I cut you off, so please, go ahead.
Sure. That was an excellent question. I moved back to Tennessee for other reasons, back to where I grew up, which I never intended to do. And I was meeting a new runners group in town. I thought, I need to meet the runners. Those are my people, as far as I know, for lack of anything better, those are my people. So I need to go meet the runners. So I was meeting the runners for a group run, and somebody mentioned that, I think this was like a New Year's Day run. Somebody mentioned that there was a guy, I said something about ultras, and somebody said something, oh, there's one of us who runs ultras. And I said, really? And I found another human that runs ultras, or that wanted to run ultras. And so I immediately tracked him down and talked to him, and he became a very good friend and training partner. And it turned out that in the odd town I live in and grew up in and am back in, there are 3 government sites here, one of them being a national lab. So there's a lot of scientists, engineers. We used to have the highest per capita PhDs in the country here. And no surprise, we also had the only ultra runners in Tennessee. And there were like 10 or 12 of us. And we'd get together and train together every weekend, do a long run together. It was great fun, and with them and learning from them, we were all kind of learning at the same time, but learning together, I ended up, running my first 40 miler. I think 40 miler was my first one, and then a 50K. And then I finally did get to my first 50 miler was the 50 miler I'd originally been training for before the appendix surgery 10 years previous. So I did finally get to that one.
This was like what, 89, 90, late 80s, right?
This is now in 97, 98, 97, late 90s. Okay. Basically 10 years after I read about my first read about ultras. Yeah.
Wow. And how was it? How was it to do a 50 miler? And so was the body of knowledge around ultras and training for long, endurance runs a lot more mature by then, or was it as raw as it was when you tried the first time?
The first time there was nothing. Zero, just guessing, totally guessing. There was nothing. There were no little columns in any kind of running newspaper or anything. So yes, there was more, but not a lot more. This was like the early 90s, rudimentary internet, which meant listservs, and for any old folks, listservs, FTPs, and all kinds of like rudimentary, basically an email discussion list was the best you could do. I did subscribe to Ultra Running, black and white newspaper or magazine back then. So I did subscribe to Ultra Running, and I found an archive of the Ultra Running listserv, the only Ultra Running listserv out there. I tracked that down, found that there was one, and found the archive that Kevin Setnese and his wife Chris thoughtfully archived. And when I decided to go run my first 100, I looked at all my ultra running magazines, which wasn't that many, and I found 3 race reports from a 100-miler person who had run a 100-miler, and what their experience was. And I poured over this archive of emails that had been organized from this listserv and just picked out every little factoid I could and tried to put them all together in a cohesive picture in my mind about what a drop bag was, what it looked like, what it should have in it, aid stations, what aid stations were going to be like, how far apart they would be, how to manage water, hydration. All of this was totally figuring it out. No, none of what you have now. So it was more, but not that much more.
And your first 50-miler itself, how did that go?
It went great. First 50-miler enthusiasm for one thing, but I was so excited to finally make it, because it's not just I get to do the distance. It's like I am taking care of this thing that I kind of promised myself I was going to do. And then I set it aside for 10 years and I almost kind of quit on myself there. And so it was very much not just doing the race and crossing the finish line, but I am standing up for myself. I am living my life and not just believing that I'm a failure at stuff because I didn't do it the first time. So it was good on that side. It was also very different than than I imagined it would be when I first read about it and had nothing to go on. I really had no concept of how it would be back then, not knowing anything, and just kind of imagined it from road marathons. It's completely on trail, and I didn't know how convoluted, how technical the trail would be. I had no idea. I didn't know how much up and down. I didn't know back then. I just had no concept, but I was willing to try it. When I finally did it, it was much, I had a better idea.
That's amazing. So, kind of fast forward, and we are here today talking to you. You've 300 ultras, probably one of the largest number of 100 milers. So maybe let's spend a little time around your 100-mile journey, right? It seems to kind of be a central theme in your journey. So maybe we start with the first one, or maybe the most memorable one, whichever one you feel makes sense to kind of give us a sense of what it's been like.
Well, actually, the first one is probably the most memorable one. And anybody who's run 100 will probably feel the same. A sense of what the journey's been like. So when I decided to sign up for my first 100, again, this was back in the late 90s, not a lot of information except for that archive from the listserv and 3 ultra running magazines. And again, I went into it very much not knowing exactly what to expect. And listeners now spend so much time, my clients now, coaching clients, spend so much time trying to find the right answer. I had no idea what to even really expect, much less what the right answer was. And so I really spent a lot of time emphasizing that you don't have to have the right answer to start with. In fact, there's not a right answer, but I really didn't know. I had no idea how it was going to feel, if I was going to be able to physically make the distance. Exactly how much is this going to hurt? Can I run that far? Because all I had back then was a 50 to go on. I'd done the 250s, and there was no 100Ks around. There were just not that many races in the Southeast where I live. And I just had no sense of, am I going to be able to do this? But I thought, I really want to try. And So funny story. I signed up for this race. I'd been to Minnesota. I knew I loved Minnesota. It's beautiful. And I thought, oh, if I'm ever going to run 100, I'm going to run it now. I had a recent 40-mile race, and I thought I need to go ahead and run it now. And I thought either that, or I'm going to give up on myself, and I'm going to know I gave up on myself. And I thought, no, I'm not going to do it here. I really want to do this, and I'm going to step up to the plate, even though I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to step up and try it. And so I found this 100-mile race in Minnesota. Perfect, beautiful. I love it. And it's far enough away from from my 10 running friends in town that they won't know if I don't finish it or not. So I can just go up there and have, try my best and see. And they didn't know. I didn't tell them I was going to be running. The guy, my boyfriend at the time, I told him, and he crewed for me. And he was one of our ultra runners. But otherwise, nobody knew. And I snuck in Superior's first weekend after Labor Day, so it's in September. I snuck in a 40-mile training run. This is, again, best guessing what I needed to do to prepare. Snuck in a 40-mile training run. I ran our usual 30 together with the group, and I ran 10 miles after that. And they didn't know it. So that would have clued them to the fact that I was training for something. They didn't know I ran that extra 10 miles. And so I went up, and I showed up at the starting line. I think there was probably maybe one other woman there. There were like 15 of us at the starting line on this road in the middle of the start of a severe thunderstorm. And I'm looking at the race director, who is now a friend of mine, and like, do we still do this? Like, it's thundering and lightning, and here we are kind of standing here. And she said, go. I thought, okay. And everybody else went, and I thought, okay, they don't think they're going to die. I'm not going to think I'm going to die. We're just going to go. And here we are running up over these in the dark with the dinkiest headlamps. I still have one of my first headlamps. I mean, it's like you wouldn't drop a screw or a nail on the ground and look for it with one of these headlamps now. It is so dim. And I couldn't see what I was doing, and we're running up over these big rocks, and with lightning all around. I was just like, I'm trusting this is all going to work out. And we spread out, like only 15, 20 runners. We spread out, way out. And so I was running miles without seeing anybody, and it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And I never knew what was going to be around the next corner. I was always excited to see what was around the next corner. And I ended up hurting the backs of my knees, overextending the backs of my knees. And I thought, oh, this is going to be a problem. And I was kind of flopping my foot. At one point I hurt my shin muscle, and I was kind of flopping my foot. And I thought, oh, come on. I'll just try and walk this off, because I really want to finish this now that I'm in here and doing it. And I did. And I kept thinking, I just want to get a little further. I just want to get a little further and see. I want to see. And I kept doing that. And and then the next thing I know, I've got like 10 miles left. And I remember, and listeners are also going to get a laugh out of this, I was so inexperienced at this that I was walking. This was the next morning, last 10, 20 miles. I'm walking a lot. All of a sudden, it occurred to me, oh, I wonder if this is going to disqualify me. All this walking. I'm supposed to be running a 100-miler. I wonder if this is going to disqualify me. And I spent a good amount of time stressed, am I going to have to answer questions? Is somebody going to say that they saw me doing all this walking? And somehow it was like my brain found, now in retrospect, my brain found this thing to worry about. And so it obsessed about that for like 10 miles. And I remember coming out of the woods, and at that time you finished across a high school football field. And I remember seeing the finish line at the far goal, and just being amazed. It took a long time to sink in, but I still remember thinking, is all this walking going to disqualify me? Somebody going to find out? Yeah. Am I a real ultra runner? Oh, maybe not.
You know,
It's-
what's amazing is 100-mile running is even today, uh, for large parts of humanity, a very, very niche sport.
yeah,
There are only a handful of human beings in this planet who can do 100 miles today.
yeah,
And back then, when we were the whole science, the whole physiology, the science of physiology was evolving. Uh, there were still a lot of myths around. If you ran a marathon, you could die of a heart attack. We've seen
oh,
those days, right?
yeah,
We've seen those days. So what strikes me about what you're sharing is, it's an act of courage that you were into,
yeah.
whether it was a 50-mile, which itself was unprecedented for most people. Even today it's unprecedented. And then the 100-mile.
Mhm.
uh, did you ever feel any fear at all, or were you always like this inspired person who's going to just keep doing these unexplored adventures?
And that's another really excellent question. I love because that's still kind of a force in my life, because especially with the life coaching, because it was very much I have this thing I know I feel with every part of my being that I'm meant to be doing.
Hmm.
It's not like it's a choice. It's like something said, this is your path.
Hmm.
And if I don't answer that, it's very much like people's dreams. If I don't answer that, there's nobody I need to give an excuse to except myself. And that really feels bad when you don't, you have a dream, you have something you're meant to be doing in life, no question about it. And you don't step up and answer that, no matter how scary it is or how much you
Yeah.
say, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea if I'm going to fail at this or not.
Mhm.
There's a high likelihood I could really fail at this in front of people,
Yeah.
all of that. But at the end of the day, it feels worse to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I
Mhm.
know it's a dream. So
Yeah.
that's what has kept me going. That, and if women out there can especially appreciate this, I followed my parents' rules, and I've told my parents this so they know.
Hmm.
I spent my childhood following my parents' rules. I followed the school's rules.
Hmm.
And when I got a job, I followed work's rules. And this was the one place in my life I could really go be who I wanted to be,
Mhm.
without asking permission
Yeah.
or approval or anything like that. And I left out that as a little kid, as a little girl growing up, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to be doing this, but I read boys' adventure books
Mhm.
about, it's typically a boy and his dog, and they go out and they find something, some crime going on or somebody.
Yeah.
And so my life was supposed to be a big adventure, and this was how
Yeah.
I got adventure in my life. Everything else was, I had to conform to somebody's rules, and this is
Yeah.
how I got adventure in my life. And this is how I got to have autonomy
Mhm.
over the most autonomy over how I lived my life and what I did. So,
That's beautiful. That's so
yeah,
beautiful. There's so much gold in what you just said, and I can hear someone. The calling is adventure. There's a sense. There's a deep calling, and
yeah,
you could call it instinct. It could get gut feel, but there is a pull. It's not easy to describe, and then you see
yeah,
something, and you say, "Aha! This connects. This resonates." And I don't know how it's going to happen, but I got to
right.
do it, right?
Yes.
But it's coming from that whole that desire, that craving for adventure,
Mhm.
and what you just said about autonomy and freedom and all of that makes a lot of sense, and very relevant even today, uh,
Yes.
more today, I guess, because you had we had certain set of rules that we had to abide by. Now you have unsaid rules. You're a part of social media. You're a part of a
Hmm.
huge human collaboration network called internet, and there are more and more rules, and you got to find those avenues where you can be yourself and you can express yourself and find the joy. So thanks for sharing that. Those are beautiful thoughts.
Yeah, that's beautifully described too. It's hard to put some of that stuff in words.
Yeah, awesome. All right. Coming back to your journey itself. So, the first marathon, the first 100-miler happened. So, yay. And then, and then, the rest is history. But love to hear about how did you just keep building on it, because, for most of us, lesser mortals, we start with something, it's amazing, there's a honeymoon period, and you're celebrating success, but the biggest struggle is scaling and sustaining something,
Right.
and the high you get out of whatever, dopamine rush or whatever that gets you started, after some time fades away. You've done 500 milers, oh well, I've done it, conquered, done. But how did you kind of continue to stay focused and motivated? Give us a sense of that.
Yeah, that is hugely important, and a lot of people just gloss right over that and they'll look at the 126 like it's a feat, and it was not like that at all. It was just an accumulation of something I loved. So when I finished that first 100-miler, I thought, this is it. This is my running home. This is this is what I am meant to do. And I did 4, 5, 6, 10 hundreds. And I thought a couple things were going on. One thing going on was the more hundreds and the more ultras I did, I thought, how is this helping the world? What's the point? At a certain point, I can do the distance. Okay. It's kind of fun, but how is this serving the world? I've always had a drive to make the world. I've always felt like I am here to make the world a better place. And so that really bothered me. It's like, I'm spending a lot of time and money on this, which is great, but how is this helping the world? And that really bothered me. And it kept, I thought about it for a lot of 100-milers. There's a lot of hours there to think about it. And I just couldn't, I wasn't coming up with the answer. And I kept trying to find the answer, couldn't find the answer. I'd give up. And then I'd think, no, the question would come back in my head and it would not leave me alone. So that was one thing. The other thing was when I finished that first 100-miler, I thought, this is it. I love this. I love this. I want to do this. And I did my first several, and I thought, okay, how do I watched other friends like saying, okay, I've done 4 or 5 and check the box. I'm done. I'm out of here and quit the sport. And I thought, no, I love it. I don't want to quit it. I don't want to be that person. And then I saw people, aging out or thinking or having a bad race and thinking, I'm not good at this anymore. I quit. I'm not signing. I'm not meant to do 100-milers. I'm not going to do them anymore. And I thought, I was very afraid. I didn't want to be that person. And there had to be a solution because they were all physically capable. It was what's up here. And there had to be a solution, and there wasn't one. So I went out to find one. The third thing that was going on was I was having DNFs, and it was almost like, and they were voluntary DNFs. They were like, I'm out. I can't do this. I quit. And they didn't feel good, but it was almost like, well, everybody's doing it. Everybody's having DNFs like this, and occasionally, and to kind of fit in, and if in a weird way. And it's like, I've got some get out of jail free cards. I've got some get out of jail DNF cards that I haven't used yet. I'm going to use one here. And I'll look like everybody else. So it's no big deal. And it did not feel good to me at all. I knew I had quit on myself. I quit Leadville twice at Winfield. Wow. at the 50-mile point. And the second time I did it, it was the exact same circumstances, and I gave the exact same answer, and I thought, you're quitting on yourself. And I knew it the moment I did it, and I was not beat up by the race. I was beat up by that in my head. And I did that twice at Umstead, flat, easy Umstead, because of the loops. It wasn't physical ability. So I knew there was something going on up here. And so I had to go. My new challenge was, I love this thing. I don't want to quit it. It gives me back so much. I am growing so much through it. I don't want to stop. I don't want to quit before I really physically need to. I need to find out the answer. And so then I set out finding the answer, which led me to life coaching, this was all new territory. There was no mental strength or whatever you want to call it these days.
Yeah.
There was no, you just got to be tough and get out there and do it. And so that helped me, that helped give a purpose to doing more of them. And it just, one thing I told my Facebook group of women ultra runners last week, and I've told them this a couple times, it is very much, if you're just doing ultras to check the box, you're just doing ultras to check the box, and you're just, that buckle, and it's the extrinsic external reward. If you're doing it, but if you look further, there is so much internal reward, and it changes. You can grow so much through ultras, and it changes your relationship with yourself. And that's what it did to me, and that's what growing, and that's continually refining and learning. Every one of these I learn, and it's not just learn how to do a race better. It's I learned something more about myself.
Yeah.
So that's how you get to 126. You don't get to 126 by beating yourself up so you get buckles, or being, what was the word I was thinking about today? Unstoppable. You get to 126 by being fascinated and curious and learning and seeing how you grow through it.
Yeah. Oh, those are beautiful thoughts. And I think the ultra community definitely would relate to the DNF University, right? The DNFs teach you a lot more sometimes than an actual finish about yourself, about what you're made of, right? So that makes a lot of sense. I think it lets you go back and introspect, dig deeper. And also, I have this, I wouldn't say theory, but I have, I've not done 100 milers, but I've done, ultras, 50Ks and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But even at that level, I do find that one does experience certain levels of, for a lack of better word, feeling one at moments with the environment and with everything around you. It feels like it's an amazing experience. Yes. And usually and mostly it happens when you've transcended those moments of pain and you've kind of gone to the space where pain no more bothers you. And if you were to draw metaphors of that to life and mental pain versus physical pain, you can connect the dots, and it makes a lot of sense because you can look at ultras as a metaphor for your own life's journey in a way, right? And
very
draw
much
lessons from that. So yeah, I mean that's amazing, and I whatever you shared is gold because you can't force yourself into doing 127 100 milers. It's not motivation theory that's going to get you there. Like you said, it's some form of deep self-expression, some kind of ease, some form of just getting there as a natural form of your own inner being in a way.
Yeah.
So that's beautifully said.
Yeah, in those moments, I also, just to interrupt you, because that is such a treasure in ultras, is those moments. I call it flow. those moments of flow where I have had those, where you just, your sense of yourself just blends out into everything else, and you become, the distinction between you and everything else is, there is no distinction. And those moments, I've had that in a 50K, and I've had that in a 100-miler. So it's not dependent on the distance at all. Yeah. That's beautiful stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So out of these 127, are there any, a few that you want to kind of call out as your close to your heart, something that was special, or are there any that you are you like, hey, they're all my children, I treat them all equally?
Yeah, they're all my children. They're all my favorite children. People ask me all the time in races, what's your favorite? And it's such a hard question, because they are all, I love them all in their own way. And I just think of them all fondly in some way. Superior, if it happens this year, it should be my 20th. And so that's a sentimental favorite. I just love it. I love the race. I love my history with the race. And I love the trail. I say hi to the trail. And just, I'm very much, it's such an opportunity for me to reflect how far I have come with myself, not just as a runner, but just the person I am over the past 20 plus years. So that's a favorite. UTMB, every race I've done over in Europe it's hard to choose among the favorites. UTMB, I did it before it got like really super popular a couple times. I was there the year it got canceled. I was there, when there were no other Americans there, which was great fun. It was so different that stands out in my mind, and the scenery. I had always wanted to go over there since I was little. So that combined with 100 miles through all that, combined with just all the different people and different languages, and that's hard to argue with. And I've done 110 miler over in England, Hardmoors, that was again very different and just gorgeous. And so those are, and the race director is a friend of mine. So those are, and 100 miles, the West Highland Way in Scotland. I love all of those equally. It's hard to choose. But probably Superior, and then Massanutten is in Virginia, is probably what I would consider, it's not the closest one to me anymore, but I almost still consider that one my home. Ultra, I have 18 finishes there. Wow. And so that's a sentimental favorite, but they're all, there's no, I can't think of bad ones. And I've won some, and I've won some outright, like double top. I've beat the guys several times there. So that's great fun. They're just all fun for different reasons.
Yeah, that's terrific. And one of the things that you talk about even on your website is about women in ultras, right? And now as we are evolving, moving forward, there's a lot more talk about inclusivity in general.
Yes.
In the sport of ultra. So do you think from a women point of view, there's been progress? It's more friendly to women now, safer for women to do ultras, and in general, do you think this is going in the right direction?
Oh, well, yeah. You mentioned back in the day, you mentioned something about back in the day when I started running in the 80s. And I remember there was a popular thing about, I still have, by the way, a booklet of women's running. I need to post that on the internet, on my Instagram page. Anyway, I remember there was a thing about, women, your uterus is going to fall out if you run too much. In my lifetime, that was a thing. And there was serious debate on this. And so that has obviously, women's the idea about what women are capable of has changed. Now, women probably already always knew this. So that's changed a lot. And I think what I see a lot of right now, I see women are so capable, but they tend to doubt themselves a fair amount. But also I see a lot of stuff that I wasn't dealing with when I started out, which is social media and the appearance of just being conscious of your appearance, failures in front of people. You have a much wider audience to fail in front of, and again, having the right answer. There is a lot of stuff. When I grew up in ultra running, it was the popular saying, and I can almost remember the ultra runner's name who started this, but the saying for years and years and years was, we're all an experiment of one. We're all an experiment of one. There was no right answer. And it was very much we are all men, women, we are all figuring this out for ourselves as we're doing this. There's very much a communal, this is what I learned about my running. This is what I learned about my running. There was no this is the right way. I see that a lot now, that there is the right way, and people, that women, I think that stops women a lot, needing the right answer to the test. Instead of feeling free to experiment and maybe get it wrong and tweak and experiment some more. So that's what I see a big block with. And there's some other things going on that I help my clients with a lot, but that's pretty common. And they need to crowdsource for the right answer. Which can, if you're already overwhelmed, don't throw the question out on social media and get more answers that you can be more overwhelmed with. It's just a bad plan. But as far as safer, there are still races. I think I haven't checked. There's one I know of that I've run that gave until recently, may still do it, more awards for men than women. One reason I don't run that race anymore. And as far as being safer, I think it's just we're finding our way with that, and we're sharing a lot of learning. I think that's got a ways to come. I just read an article about a guy holding a woman down in a pool in England the other day because she was lapping him, and he got mad at her. She was lapping him. So, we've got a ways to go on that.
Yeah, no, well said. And I think in the issue of safety and security, I agree. I think there's a long way to go, because we, let alone ultras, which happens in the middle of nowhere. There's no civilization in any of those places. But even regular parks, right? There's a lot more. I think we have to figure out a way to make it safer for women to run, especially early mornings, late evenings, where training is the most convenient for most people, especially if you're working and you have a regular life, and that's the time when you run. And I think there's no easy answer there, but definitely something that as a society we got to figure out some solutions. And yes. I'm sure with your kind of track record and voice, that there's probably more we can amplify in that space.
I hope so. Yeah. I train in the Smokies, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I feel very comfortable there. It's a national park. I'm pretty familiar with the trails. I've done a lot of the trails. I feel very safe there. Everybody always asks me about bears. I see bears. I see bear cubs. I've had bears huff at me when I didn't know the cubs were there, and I've said yes. Sorry, didn't know they were there. I have never had a problem with a bear. I have had plenty of problems with people at trailheads or at road crossings. So it's the people and not the bears, for me.
And bears are going to be gender neutral anyway. So,
Yeah.
they're just going to look at you as a human being. Piece of
Yeah.
meat. They're hungry or if you threaten them, right? So,
Right.
yep. Makes sense. So, now talking a little bit about your what's next and where
Yeah.
you're headed. Your coaching business, of course, seems to be a central theme, and so give us a sense of what that is about. How's that going?
Really well. And I'm changing. So I'm making a sea change right now that I'm always looking at how to better serve my clients and to get them the results that they want to get them stronger results. And it really kind of depends on what they come to me for: more confidence, race skills, making decisions, this, that, and the other. But I'm making, I'm really always kind of tweaking it, just like ultras. I'm always kind of tweaking what I do and what I actually offer. It's going very well. It is the missing piece. And what I'm really being very forward about right now is that I am a life coach. I've hidden that for a long time because it wasn't popular. It seemed very woo-woo, new to agey, right, flaky. But it is, honestly. I talked to the life coach I started working with when I first heard about life coaches. This person's a life coach? I asked her the other day, we still stay in contact. I said, when did I first start working with you? And it was right at the time when I was in early 2000s, when I was really getting those DNFs and struggling with, I love this sport. I want to stick with it. I don't want to give it up. How do I not quit like all these people I'm seeing? And how do I not burn out on it? How do I do this? And again, there was no right answer back. There was no answer. There was no solution. And I just spent a lot of time and effort looking, and I ended up working with a life coach, and she changed. It stuck with me, and it changed my life. And for a long time, for about like a year or so, I thought, I really want to be I need to be a life coach. No, that's too flaky. I'm an engineer. That's not me. I'm a runner. Too left brain, too wacky, no. And I denied it for like a year. And then it was so funny. I noticed that some a life coaching school had opened up entry. And I thought, and then the excuse was, too expensive. And I got a windfall of money that was the exact amount. And I thought, like the day before entry closed. And I thought, well, if that's a sign, if there was ever a sign, that's a sign. So I thought, well, again, like hundreds, I'm just going to go into it and we'll just see what it's like. And so I went into it anyway. It has the journey from then. That was 2011 when I finally got out of school and certified was 2011. And so I've been a life coach for a long time, and I've been in the background when I've not been telling people I'm a life coach. I've been applying all this stuff and getting better at it. I've been applying it for myself and for clients off and on. And I've recently, especially with social media, I've realized how much a need there is for ultra runners to have a general life coach to talk about life. We're not just running in this magical, perfect vacuum that is totally separate from all the stresses of life. Kids, relationships, jobs, moves, deaths in the family, all kinds of stuff goes on. And we're still trying to ultra run, which takes a fair amount of time. And it takes a lot of, at the distances we're running, it takes a lot of mental and emotional energy too. And a lot of times we just focus on the physical side of it. And we don't want to think about the mental and emotional side until you get into a race. And then we talk about pain caves and all that. But all of that stuff is going on while you're training too. And there is nobody to really turn to help you learn how to help you deal with that stuff and then learn the skills to deal with it on your own. So what I'm teaching my clients, what I'm doing is helping them deal with this stuff, because I know I have my own life coach. I know what this is like and what a difference it makes in your life just to have an hour to talk to somebody every week about, this is what's going on for me. How do I deal with this better? Or what is a better way to think about this? Or what's a solution to this? Or how do I make this decision? Just to have somebody in your corner who is your biggest cheerleader to talk this stuff through every week is like priceless. And that makes such a difference for running, because you're running in the middle of real life. You're not just running separately. So it makes a difference. And so I'm helping them with the life part, but I'm also teaching them the skills to, in the race, when you finally get in the race, all this stuff comes up. If you haven't dealt with it by now, all this stuff will just come up even more so in the race. And then how do you deal with it? So race skills, and sometimes just the general, how do you pack your drop bags and stuff like that. Anytime, my shorthand now for when does life coaching apply to running, anytime your brain, your mind, and your emotions are involved, that's when life coaching applies to running. Just pretty much everything.
Yes, absolutely. The brain is our next frontier, right? And
yes,
and if you see all the work that's happening in neuroscience, there's a synthesis of ancient philosophies and modern neuroscience and religious beliefs. All of that's coming together, and that's the final frontier. And I think whatever you're doing in life coaching is, I can almost hear it's going to enable all of us who don't have time to go through and figure this out by ourselves to kind of really.
Oh yeah, it
that.
took me years to figure some of this stuff out, and I can help people so much faster than the floundering around and the dead ends I went through. Yeah.
And in terms of ultra running itself, what's on the horizon for you? Where are you headed with this?
I am 58. I am not a spring chicken. I would love to be doing this until the day I die, which hopefully is not tomorrow. I'm like the day I die when I'm like 100 plus. And so that's what I would like to be doing. Whether it works out that way, we'll see. I've tried to take care of things physically the best I can, and mentally too. That makes a difference. Again, I harp on that mentally and emotionally. You can't, stress does use cortisol in your body, and that does affect your body too. But anyway, where I am is, I made several years ago, I decided I love 100-milers the most. I'm going to prioritize that. That's why I was doing 10-ish a year, just because it was my favorite distance. I thought, why am I running 50Ks when I could be running 100-milers? And so I'd like to do that as long as I can. I am also focused right now. 2020 was an interesting year. It's a tough year for me, extremely tough, more than pandemic wise, but that really gave me the freedom to rethink everything. And I'm sure it gave everybody else that same freedom. I'm seeing a lot of that right now, people rethinking jobs, but it gave me a freedom to rethink everything. And it gave me a check on these races that you wanted to do since you first read about ultra running. Maybe it's time to sign up for those and do those finally, instead of putting those off until how many other next days, sooner, I'll do those someday. How many other somedays do you have? So that's what I'm concentrating on. That's what I'm trying to focus on right now is doing hundreds, because I love the distance and I love the experience and I love the people and everything about it. Still, after all this time, all these years, I still love it. And also getting those races that I always dreamed about and have started, and just getting those done. Signing up for those things, not getting them done, but experiencing them finally, getting those excuses out of the way.
And you also talked about age, and so just from perspective of question that might come forward for our viewers is, what are you modifying in your training? What are you doing differently to? I guess obviously being smart about it because you're still doing quite many at this time. So what's working for you? What would you say?
Yeah, I am in 2020 with no races. I decided to switch. I usually during the weekday I ran on roads around here, and it's great. I mean, the whole neighborhood knew me. I met a lot of people. I knew all my neighbors, waved to people, all kinds of stuff. Loved it. But I really rethought it last year, and I thought, yeah, I'm not running races. I'm going to. What do I need to do to invest in my long-term health, running wise? So I switched to a dirt location. It's flatter, which I don't love, but I'm on dirt instead of on pavement, which, can't be a bad thing. I'm getting to meet a whole new set of people, which is fine. I'm finding new joy in that. So I switched to dirt during the week, and I am in my long runs, which, I did my long run yesterday. Right now, they're a little bit shorter. I used to run just for a long time, 50 Ks, like every weekend. There's just my training distance. 20, if you got the exact measurement out there, it's probably 28 to 31 miles, somewhere in there. But that was just my sweet spot every weekend. It's just not fast, slow, long run. Right now, it's probably 20 to 25. And I did Mohican 100 for the first time 2 weeks ago, and I really did it without planning. I signed up like 3 days before the race. And I knew, and I thought it through, that I have a training base, but I don't have the long run base that I would normally have. So how I compensate for that is I expect to go slower in the race. That's just something to expect. And I'm going to use my smarts and my know-how and my mental strength to offset the lack of physical training and take care of myself on the way through the 100. So I did that, and it worked out okay. It wasn't ideal, but it worked out fine. So to answer your question, I've moved to dirt more, and I am doing shorter long runs on a regular basis, with the anticipation that if I've got a race like Superior coming up in a month or so, I'll ramp up my long runs. And so I'm doing that. I have not been racing as much. I've just got other stuff going on right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to adjust the number of. I'm really loving my coaching right now, and that takes some time too. So that's kind of taking away from my races, which is fine because I love them both. The other change I'm making is, I'm taking another day off a week. I'm taking Wednesdays off. I have also started, I think when I did the infamous, and it's infamous because I still keep getting references to it, 10 Junk Miles podcast years ago, that I said proudly that I don't do strength training, I just run. I do strength training now. This is the updated podcast. I do strength training. I love it. It is such a great addition to my running. I've been doing it for several years now. I stretch more, and so those are some other changes I've made that I think are really beneficial.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it seems to align with a lot of what I've been hearing from athletes who are aging sensibly, which is to add the strength training and the flexibility part of it. These are the two things that tend to deteriorate over age. So if that's, I think what you're saying kind of resonates with that. That makes a lot of sense. So that's at least there's confirmation bias there.
Well, there's one other thing from a life coaching perspective. That's the physical stuff. Everybody's always wanting the physical answers. What practical actions are you taking? From the life coaching side, it is a fascinating new world. It is a new, if you were getting bored with hundreds, once you add age in there, it's like adding an extra level of challenge to it is the way I look at it. It's like, okay, I was, I got the hundreds down, I got the distance down, I think I started in my late 30s, 38 or something like that. I got to where I knew I could do the distance. Well, now that I'm aging, that ups the bar. Now I got to be on my game again in a whole different way. I need to learn new things. I've got new thoughts in my head about why I can't do it. I have learned to challenge that, well, I'm old as an excuse, because my mind likes to throw that up as an excuse for things. So it's like, wait a minute, let's look at that. So there's a whole different set of physical skills, and there's a whole different set of mental skills now that I'm aging, that I think is like, I have no choice but to age or die. So aging is great. So I might as well embrace this stuff and enjoy it. And so I'm enjoying it as a whole new challenge. And again, I'm not enjoying it just for me. I'm enjoying it also for what can I learn to help my clients with. I am going forth as an explorer into this new land of aging, and what can I find to help the people coming after me?
Makes a lot of sense. Thanks for sharing that. And there's a lot of gold, platinum, everything mixed in what you shared. So we're gonna move to the next part of our conversation, where I have a fun Q&A round.
Excellent.
So you ready for that?
I am.
All right.
I haven't had all my coffee yet, but I'm ready.
All right, let's do that. So the first thing, are you a teetotaler, by the way?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I stopped on the way home from my long run with groceries defrosting in the car for a quick beer at the local the local brew pub, which is like less than a mile from the house. So.
All right. So maybe you answered the question, but let me ask you more specifically. What's your favorite spirit?
Oh my goodness. Last night it was beer, and because I was only going to have one, I made a vanilla cream brew. I decided I was going to try a dessert beer. That's what I call them, a dessert beer. So that was one, and that was like enough of those. Wine. I tend to drink wine at home when I'm cooking. Either one.
Any favorites?
One of those. No, my house brew is my house beer, which there's like almost a full case that's been sitting in the fridge now for a long time, waiting for an excuse for people to come over and drink it. Is Yeehaw Dunkel. And Yeehaw is a local brewery and in Johnson City, Tennessee, and their Dunkel is just the home brew. So maybe that's close enough to my favorite.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think the craft brewing scene is so expansive now, and there's so much to experiment with. It's fun. It's fun to play around with those different flavors. Your favorite junk food?
Oh, French fries.
French fries.
Hands down. Yeah. Well, tater tots or French fries.
Any favorite in the French fries? Or is anything goes?
Well, heading home from Mohican, the friend I was riding with wanted to stop at McDonald's. So McDonald's French fries at that point in time were just like awesome. I've been just loving like the Kroger brand of tater tots lately, and the dog loves them too. I share a little bit. So I'm still working on, I think it's my mission to like track down the best French fries in the world. So I'm still searching. It's an honorable challenge.
That's a nice hobby.
Yes, it is.
Nice hobby. And I know you mentioned your dog. Do you run with your dog as well a lot, or?
I did. He is 13 now, and he's dealing with, that's another thing that's going on in my life. He's 13, and I inherited him when he was in older age. He is a blessing. I love him dearly. He is 13. He's going through a tick disease right now. So, and it's a tick disease that one of the human vets in town has. So I've learned a lot about tick diseases. There's a whole lot of diseases we can get from ticks besides Lyme disease. And so he's like, dealing with him on, leaving him alone for long runs that's just kind of a thing right now that that I choose to live around and work around and run around.
Yeah, I've seen him on your Facebook posts. Very, very.
He's handsome.
Handsome, yeah.
And he knows it.
Yeah. All right. A song that uplifts you.
I am going to totally fail at this one. I was in Starbucks this morning and Katy Perry came on, Fireworks song came on, and we were both, my barista friend and I were both talking about how we don't love that one, but that's stuck in my head right now.
Okay.
I don't run with music, so I run, I used to say, I don't run with, I don't listen to anything. I really don't in races. And if I'm out on a trail in the Smokies, I don't. Mm-hmm. But since I've been doing gravel loops in town, I've been consuming podcasts like crazy. And I don't get very far very fast because it's like, oh yeah, I got to write that down. So I stop and, make a note in my phone. So my pace at my long runs has been dubious, but I've been listening to podcasts instead of music. So I'm going to be hopeless at this one.
Okay. All right. But do you listen to music in general at all?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Is there anything?
It's kind of omnivorous, really.
Okay.
Yeah, it's whatever is.
Yeah.
I don't have any strong favorites.
Okay. Makes sense. All right. A place that you want to visit after the pandemic is over.
So right now I signed up I'm on Instagram a lot these days, as a business, and I'm loving it. It's so fun. And I signed up I liked like a Greek travel something or other. So I'm getting these feed posts of Greece that are just like, oh my gosh, I've got to go there. So it's like Greece and Italy, or like Greece and Italy. Yeah.
All right. I think Greece has come up probably the most in this question that I've asked my guests. Yeah, in terms of
photos are stunning.
So, yeah. So Greece, watch out. You have a lot of people coming your way.
Yes.
All right. Last one, which is my favorite one, which I ask all my guests, is if you made a movie about your life, what genre would you put it in, and who would you want to play your character?
I don't know current actors. Oh my goodness. What genre? It would be adventure chick flick. I'm going to make up a genre. It would have to have some funny stuff along with it.
You have to make a new genre, because that's
I have
you.
To make one.
That's you.
It would be an adventure chick flick, and the chick has to be the main star. Who would play me? I don't know, but that would be so fun to audition for parts. That would be, that would be a blast. Ooh, I'll have to go figure that one out. I don't know the answer, but I might have to go figure that out. That's fun.
Maybe I'll pick one for you then.
Okay.
Let's pick Julia Roberts then.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Jennifer Aniston or Julia Roberts, I think. I could go for either one right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Terrific. You did well in the Q&A round. We learned a few more things about you. So
yes.
Hey, Susan, we I think spoke at length about various aspects about your journey, and thanks for sharing that with us. We're kind of coming to a wrap up here.
Okay.
Is there anything that you want to convey as a message before we wrap it up.
If I tell people one thing, if I had only one message to give, and I have like 20 million, let's just go two. Give me two. So ultra running is such a powerful thing. Obviously, we all know that. Don't ignore the mental and emotional aspects of it, because if you do that, or don't avoid that, because if you learn to deal with that, that gives you such a bigger experience in an ultra. It takes it from, it's not something you have to do, but it opens up so much more for you to experience. It enlarges the experience for you. So don't avoid it. And if I was going to, and I can help with that, of course, but also if I was going to tell anybody anything, I adore my clients. And one thing I do with my clients is, and I don't think they appreciate this, but I see what they are capable of. I see how they are limiting themselves in their thinking, and I see what they are capable of physically and as people, as you know, in ultra, believe in them so much. It is, you know, if you have a cheerleader, I am your cheerleader. And I want their results for them so much. So the one thing I would tell them and tell everybody is, you are so much more, from my perspective and what I see and what I know is possible. You're capable of so much more than you can even imagine that you are. I mean, you can't even imagine it until you get out there and start just trying. So get out and try. Don't worry about the failure. Failure is just part of it, part of getting to where you want to go. It is just a minor part of it.
Yep. Great message, Susan. And, you know, your life epitomizes that message. You walk the talk. You're just not preaching here. You know, you're someone who's created new pathways, and you take the chance, and it's serving you. So great message there. And thanks, Susan, for taking the time out. I'll let you go, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you. This has been an absolute delight, and I love the questions. They have been such excellent questions, and different ones than I usually get. So this has been awesome fun. Thank you. I appreciate it.